it's cash now. I'll call cash. Hey, you think I can come back in?
Yeah. What was the first one that you got, the first assignment that you got? We're like, oh boy, this is big leagues.
That was the Outlaws case. I'd already done some undercovers, again, in the FBI. I'd done several street-level things, or numerous, whatever, at the state level. But I was doing a couple of cases in the FBI, and they were smaller. You know, maybe it was supposed to be interstate transportation of stolen goods, and it turned into a public corruption case. But when I landed the Outlaws case, that was my first big, and probably one of the biggest I did. But so back to the Outlaws thing. I go in, and I'm just shooting the shit. I'm just working the bar. I'm telling jokes. You get a crowd of people around you, and that's not trade crowd. I mean, that's just me, right? And by the way, for the listeners who may not know, little intervention. If you buy all your friends all their drinks and their food all the time, they're probably not your friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got all kinds of friends. Those aren't your friends.
Right.
Stop paying them. They won't come around anymore. But that's kind of what I was doing. And then now we get to the night to where the Outlaws are leaving their clubhouse. And for the listeners that don't know, in the biker world, especially 1%er world, there's a mandatory meeting every week at a clubhouse, and they refer to it as church. So they're leaving church. I get the surveillance team telling me, hey, man, we're leaving church. I'm like, cool. I'm at the bar, already the Foxy Lady in Brockton, Massachusetts. And
that's a rough town.
Right. And Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Yeah,
I'd go for a jog, and I'd
go,
home and Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. But they tell me they're coming. Now, the intelligence that they had provided me when we started getting this case together, I was like, hey, man, can they wear their colors, their cuts, their leathers in the bar? And they said, no, they don't allow that. And I'm thinking in my mind, well, that makes my approach easier because I'm not a tattooed guy watching naked women listening to heavy metal and drinking next to a guy who's watching naked women and heavy metal drinking. They had that part wrong because about 13, 15 outlaws come walking into the bar, take the whole back bar. They're all wearing their colors. So does that change my approach?
Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Unless you want me to go up, and as I say when I'm teaching this, I go up and I go, what do you say? I'm going to go, hey, you boys ride? Nothing? No? All right, fine. I'm going to go back on the other side of the bar. Please don't beat my ass. So I just was being loud and boisterous. It's me. That's what I do. It doesn't always work for undercovers. Some people don't like it, but it's my personality.
So what is the dance of getting to the bar, becoming a regular, and then eventually getting to know these guys?
So that first night, I'm being loud and boisterous, and they did say that there was one particular member who loved to be the center of attention, and he loved to be surrounded by big dudes. Take that for what you want. I don't know. I didn't dive too deep into that one, but when you say hang out with big dudes,
are we wearing clothes?
Why is there a jar of Vaseline over there? What kind of party is this?
That's what the camera is.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, have a drink of this before you come in here and sign this NDA.
Yeah. What?
So I start befriending them, and I'm being loud. Let me take it back. I'm being loud. This guy did like attention. He sees it, and he's like, hey, where the F are you from? So I fire some stupid comedy thing back. We start going back and forth because he's already asked the bartenders, who the hell's that guy? Oh, that's Tex. He comes up here all the time from Texas. I come up here all the time. That's human nature. It's like, you caught a fish this big. By the 10th person you're telling, man, there was like 10 of them.
Right.
I had to fight them off with my pinkies. But I get called over. I don't know who sent a drink to who first, but he calls me over and just starts shooting the shit with me. And from then, he pretty much invites me to one of their Northeast regionals called Lobster Fest, held in Brockton at that clubhouse. And we were kind of on the way. There was a guy who was not patched, and his name was Scott as well. I said the name of the book. It's all adjudicated. It's all in the court proceedings and stuff. But Scott Town was his name, and he was a big dude. He was jacked, and he came in. I remember going to the bathroom. And again, I think I'm doing pretty good. Like I'm in great shape. I'm being me. I'm talking, shooting the shit, not hanging out too much. I walk back over, play a little, you come chase me kind of thing. So I go to the bathroom and nobody's in there. And for the listeners that don't know, men's bathrooms and bars, usually at the urinal, there's some kind of box, plexiglass with some kind of ads like, hey, this person's coming next week, that stuff. So as I'm peeing, I'm looking at the reflection and I see the door swing open, and I see this jack dude, Scott. It must have made an impression because in the report, I even say he's wearing like a gray shirt with black trim. He's completely sleeved out, and I'm getting all this from, sleeved out on the left arm, huge earrings. And I watch him, and I see him kind of ducking and looking under stalls and hitting the doors to make sure nobody else is in the bathroom. I'm acting nonchalant, but then I see him walk up to me, and for that split second, I thought, I'm getting jacked. I'm going to get jumped right here. But he ends up just asking me, what brings you to Massachusetts? I think what happened is they sent him in there to press me. And this is a good lesson. Don't bluff. If you bluff, whatever you say today, you might be still in that case a year and a half, 2 years later. It needs to match what you said on day one, or you could be slipping up and getting found out. But I said where I'd been around, McAllen, grew up in South Carolina, all this stuff. He'd been to all those places because he used to travel the country fighting dogs. So if I'd have been bluffing, I'd have been done right there. And then from there, we start building relationships. Now I'm trying to ingratiate, and I'm getting invited to parties. My story was that I was a site survey specialist, and I traveled the country for investors out of Texas, and I would look at properties that they want to buy, whether it's residential or mercantile, and pull stuff from the clerk of court and all that kind of stuff. But as it usually does in the criminal world, it came out that I also did some crimes myself, and that's when we started getting into. They were doing insurance fraud first with me. They would report vehicles stolen and then sell them to me for a stolen price. And the story was, since I was based out of McAllen, Texas, I'm just using the facts that we were moving vehicles to Mexico in trade for whatever, guns, dope, most likely dope, but whatever. And that's how we started. And then from there, now you start gaining more trust. You start hanging out more. You become tighter. You're building these relationships. And then it's like, hey, we just carjacked somebody. We got this car. We took this dude at gunpoint. This thing's got LoJack or OnStar or whatever was around, and then we know how to get rid of it. Don't worry about it. I got it. Have a truck driver show up. We load all the stolen equipment, vehicles, whatever, on the truck, and they thought they were going to Mexico, but they were just going to a warehouse somewhere in Massachusetts.
So you never actually brought cars to Mexico?
No.
So when you would do that, we just get cash from the FBI to represent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would pay them, yeah, a stolen price. Stolen's usually 20 to 25% of what it would normally cost, because it's hot. And that just started gaining trust. I mean, like I said, there was other undercovers that would help. We call those cameos. If you're the primary undercover, that's you. That's your case. A secondary undercover might mean you come in to meet me, but you stay with me for a couple of days and we go out and meet bad guys together. That's going to be a secondary role. If you're coming in as a truck driver, you're just pulling in the parking lot, we're loading up stuff, that's a cameo. And I've done many cameos for other undercovers as well. Just roll into town, do a deal, whatever.
So no one's ever trying to go with you to Mexico to make sure that all this is happening?
Not on that case, but if they did want to, we would have to work that out. We would have to have that kind of, because I took this from a buddy of mine who I helped certify as an undercover, and I just thought it was a great way to say it. It's, look, at the end of the day, we want that target going to bed thinking, that was a good day. You don't want them laying in bed going, man, there's something wasn't right about that guy.
Right.
Something's not right, because you want it to be as real as possible.
Right.
So was it a fact that the cartels at that point in time loved 4x4 V8s and Harley Davidsons? Absolutely. Did they get stolen all the time on the border? Absolutely. So that's factual stuff that's real. So now I'm a guy. They eventually learned and believed that I was a high-ranking member of an international theft ring. And that's what we were doing. And then through those, then they start stealing vehicles, which they got to be careful of. I can't say, hey, I want a brand new F-350 quad cab, because then they go steal it. That's somewhat of entrapment. I just led them to go steal that car, right? But over the next year or so, we're getting more and more stuff. I buy dope from them. Like I said, carjackings, we learned of them, certain members extorting people, like the good old mafia days, extorting businesses, home invasions. But again, for the listeners listening, to hear that at a bar and say, yeah, we robbed that house, is that enough to charge somebody? Probably not. As an assistant United States attorney, going to be like, yeah, that's enough. No, we're going to have to dive in more and find out and vet it out and get that evidence.
Wow. Stressful shit.
Slightly.
Getting stressed out just thinking about you doing all these things.
Me too.
So how long is this relationship while you're building a case? How much time are you spending with these people?
For that case, I was probably up there every 3 weeks for a good week, but then there's constant contact when I'm not there.
Text messages.
Yeah, Nextels were big with them at that point in time. So yeah, chirps.
Oh, that's the old days, the walkie-talkie one.
Radio, yeah.
Yeah, those were funny. People forgot about them walkie-talkies.
Yeah, man. It was crazy about that. You could key up and talk to somebody in Japan, and it'd be crystal clear, but if you tried to call somebody, it was the worst connection ever.
Yeah, they were terrible phones.
Yeah, but that's what they used, and that's what I got, and I was mirroring them. But so you build those relationships, and it depends. Each case is different, but I will say that the tightest relationship I had on that case was Scotttown. It was absolutely scary how similar we were. And how tight we were. Now, again, he didn't know I was Scott Payne, FBI undercover, but he knew I was Scott Calloway. And he knew, it would be to the point to where if we were going out to do an op that evening, an operation, they wouldn't put it in the operations plan, but they would ask, hey, is Scotttown going to be there tonight? I'm like, yeah. And even the FBI cover teams and stuff would be like, good, because they knew that he cared enough about me. He'd take a bullet for me and protect me, and vice versa, really, as me and Scott Calloway. And, we finished each other's sentences. We thought the same, other than the criminal stuff, and some faith belief systems. But that was my tightest. And the second one over the 2 years was probably a guy whose road name was Clothesline, and he was the enforcer for the Taunton chapter. And then after that, it probably would have been the president, which was Joe Dogs, and then it just trickles down from there.
Do you have conflicted feelings when you develop like these relationships with these guys?
I did. You can put on as much training. You can get the training. You can be a part of it. I'm still human, you know. Now, was I to a point to where I'm going to go, I'm leaving the FBI and I'm going to become a 1%er?
Some people do, though, right?
I know some people do, but I wouldn't there. I wouldn't do that.
How often does that happen?